You're listening to Let's Stay Together Anime Break, the sub-series of Let's Stay Together where we talk about the 2019 anime Fruits Basket. I'm Ellen.
And I'm Kayla.
You know, we say this is like a sub-series, but it's the only thing we're doing these days.
Yeah.
It's like the series where we also talk about the anime.
The surviving series. Let's Stay Together.
Yeah, basically. Well, no, not the train. We just started. The train's always here.
Like, I'm Ellen, and I'm Kayla, and I'm
the train. Pretty much. We were quote-unquote on a roll. Train's like, so am I.
We.
Today we're discussing Season 2, Episode 21, which was called There Was, Definitely. Which is kind of an awkward title, but whatever. I get it. We're going to do our summary, spoiler-free discussion, and spoiler discussion like we always do.
Mm-hmm.
Yay.
Spoilers, it was sad.
It was sad. Did anybody else tear up? I did.
We're back in the sad.
Yeah, I mean, I guess oh yeah, well, last time was funny. Last episode was more lighthearted. This one, however, was sad. Very sad. This episode covered chapters 84 and 85 of the manga, and we discussed it in our podcast episode number 44, which was called This World is More Than Darkness. Ours covered chapters 84 to 86, so I guess if you're like, I don't know if anybody actually goes back and listens to them, but there was some content that hasn't been shown in the anime yet that was covered in that episode. Surprise train!
Snuck up on us.
Wow. What's happening down there? It's like a train party?
I guess.
Like a train convention?
It's like, what do you haul? I haul coal. What do you haul?
Grain.
Ooh.
Ooh. We're really running out of content on this show. It's kind of weird to talk about the same thing twice. Sometimes I still get confused, but it's fine.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about something in this episode later. I mean, it's probably not relevant, but I was like, did that happen yet? I don't know. Mm-hmm. Anyway, if the train is done...
I think so.
This episode opens with the classic sweeping view of the Soma estate, and we hear a tiny boy cough. Turns out that it's baby Yuki. We also haven't talked about them being babies in a long time in the manga podcast, so now it's time. It's baby Yuki. That old maid leads him and his mother down the halls of the estate. She says the birth of the rat of the zodiac is a matter of great celebration for the Soma family. Not only for Akito-san, the current head, but the late head of the family would have been thrilled as well. Yuki's mother worries that he's too sickly and may not be a proper companion for Akito, but the maid reassures her. There's no need to worry. It's said that there's a special bond between God and the zodiac. They stand outside Akito's chambers. Yuki coughs and his mother tells him coldly not to cough in front of the head of the family. Baby Yuki hurriedly covers his mouth and tries to suppress another cough. The maid slides open the doors and announces them. Akito, also a child, perhaps not that much older than Yuki, looks up from his reading and smiles a soft smile. Yuki starts to cry. I couldn't help it, he narrates. Something unnamed from deep, deep within my chest was shouting. I wanted to see you. I didn't want to see you. I want to embrace you. I want to escape. Beloved? Repulsive. Yuki's mother frets and scolds him for crying, and the maid says the older Junichi cried as well when they met. It must be the bond between them. Akito comes over, takes Yuki's hands, then hugs him. He says, we finally meet, my Yuki. And we cut to the opening theme. Dun dun. Dun dun. After the theme, we open at the main house again. Yuki was always by Akito's side as a child. We see the pair's children. Akito explains that of all the Junichi, the one possessed by the rat is the greatest and closest to God, which means you're most similar to me, he says. You're special, just like me. Yuki would spend all day inside as Akito's playmate. He was young and didn't question anything like that back then. Later, Yuki coughs as the two eat dinner. Akito gets upset and drops his bowl of rice and shouts, "Shut up, stop coughing, it's so annoying!" When Yuki is able to stop, he grumbles and picks up the fallen bowl. Akito had tantrums, Yuki narrates, but they were different from the way he acts now. Akito would even cry. Yuki often caught sight of Shigure comforting Akito. I didn't know it was so sad or frustrating, he narrates. Then it started suddenly. One day, Akito became twisted. Sometime later, Akito erratically drags black paint or ink across the screen walls of his room. Paint is splattered across his clothes and his face. This world, my world is pitch black, he says to Yuki, who stands behind him, mouth agape, unsure of what to do. So I have to make this room more fitting color, right? You too, Yuki. You're pitch black too. We've always been the same, so you need to be pitch black too. Akito pauses. The paint pools and drips from the paintbrush. No, Akito says. We're nothing alike. I'm not useless. I'm the one who's chosen. Someone who's needed. I'm here because I need to be. I'm nothing like you. Akito drops the paint and crushes the brush against the wall. You're my toy. Your mother gave you to me. You were basically thrown away. Yuki remembers back to when his mom dropped him off and asked when he could go home. Someday, she says coldly, and leaves. The rat is hated, Akito says, pushing Yuki to the floor. Nobody cares about you. Nobody. If I weren't here, you'd be completely worthless. At a past New Year's gathering, we see the Junichi together at the banquet. Yuki realizes that he never talked to the other Junichi, not even the person who apparently was his older brother. He was always with Akito. Yuki steps out of the banquet room. The cat child is outside, he hears, frustrated to be left out, some maids say. Yuki never met Kyo before. Yuki steps outside. Baby Kyo is there, standing in the snow. What a pretty orange color, Yuki thinks, looking at his hair. Kyo notices him, then scowls. Yuki says hesitantly. You're the rat, Baby Kyo says. Yuki says with a shy smile. I won't forgive you. I'll never forgive you. It's all the rat's fault. It's all because of you. Everything. You should just disappear from this world, Kyo says, and runs off. Yuki's upset and stunned. He goes back inside, crying for his mother, and when he finds her, she slaps him. Where have you been? Get back to the head of the family now, she says. Yuki remembers Akito telling him, the rat is hated. Nobody cares about you. Later, in a dark room, Yuki cowers in a corner, holding his knees, his head down. Akito kneels in front of him. Akito says, don't delude yourself. This world is pitch black, and your whole life will be pitch black. You've no potential or hope. You're going to live along this pitch black path, so don't think that you'll ever be saved. Yuki narrates that he heard those negative words every day. Akito burned those words into him, and eventually he started to believe that no one cared about him, that he was worthless and insignificant. He remembers reaching out to Ayame for help, but Ayame shrugs him off. Even when he did reach out, wishing to be saved, Yuki narrates, he became afraid to be seen by those apathetic and hateful eyes. Later, he overhears some of the family talking about his parents living it up. They basically sold their kid to the head of the family. I could never do that, one of them says. Yuki realized that nobody would come for him since his parents were satisfied with their situation. In the eyes of the Soma family, his parents were winners. Later, Yuki is riding to school in the car with his mother, and the driver asks if he's enjoying elementary school. Before he can answer, his mother chimes in that he has no opinions, despite the fact that his school is superior to that of the other Junishis. The car passes the kiddos, Kyo, Haru, Momiji, and Kagura on their way to school. Yuki watches longingly out of the car window as Kagura tackles Kyo, and the kids tease each other. It's really cute. I mean, it's sad that Yuki's not there, but it's cute. He says school was uncomfortable too. He tried not to interact with others, not that he knew how. He didn't want to be hated more than he already was, but fortunately, one time, some boys invited him to play soccer with them. Come on, let's be friends, they say. Yuki smiles and takes off with them, and as they play, he thinks, friends, my first friends. He was overjoyed. Some of his friends were Somas too, so they decided to go exploring the grounds together. While playing, he got too excited and forgot to be careful around other girls. In his memory, a girl bumps into him while playing. He transforms into a tiny rat and falls to the ground, which was also sadly cute. It was a huge incident, he narrates. All of his friends' memories had to be erased. Obviously, it's weird for a human to transform into a rat, Akito tells him after the incident. If normal people found out, they'd be disgusted. They won't want to come close to you anymore. Didn't I tell you? Don't delude yourself. Later, Yuki cries and begs an all too young Hattori not to erase his friend's memories. Afterwards at school, his former friends went past without noticing him. As Yuki walks home, a strong wind blows. Wait, Shisho, my hat flew, the little boy says, and a blue hat drops to the ground in front of him. Hat's on his back. Baby Kyo runs around a corner to collect the hat, but stops when he sees Yuki. Yuki picks it up to hand it to Kyo, and Kyo scowls and runs away in the opposite direction. At home that evening, Yuki clutches the hat and sobs. There was something I wanted, he narrates. Parents that would embrace me, a home I wanted to return to, a place where everyone smiled, a me that people wouldn't distance themselves from. Sometime later, Yuki's very sick with a cough. Akito speaks to a doctor and a maid about his condition, then asks if he can keep Yuki company. The maid comments on how kind Akito's offer is. Akito approaches Yuki, who sits up on a chair to ease his breathing. With a wry smile, Akito asks, Hey, are you gonna die? Yuki doesn't respond. Akito says he's no fun. Yuki narrates, Was it my body or my heart that was slowly weakening? Outside the room, the attendants comment on how neither Yuki's parents nor Ayame would come visit him. Akito juggles some toy beanbags in front of Yuki and casually comments about how the cat's mother committed suicide some years ago. They said it was an accident, he says, but she left a note or something. It said things like, It's hard to be near him. I might have been a little happier if I'd given birth to the rat. He detests you. At the funeral, he said, I'll kill Yuki, then I'll kill myself. Akito says that the ox, Hatsuharu, also hates him. It's the rat's fault the ox is a laughingstock. Everybody hates you, huh, Yuki? Akito says. He places one of the toy beanbags in Yuki's hand. Yuki remembers Kyo telling him that he should just disappear at New Year's. He drops the beanbag. Later, Yuki wakes early in the morning. Even the dawn was gray, he narrates. Yuki digs around in a drawer and pulls out the hat, thinking that he needs to return it to Kyo, but he knows he probably won't take it. He puts it on and looks in a mirror. It doesn't suit him. He thinks, I don't know his sadness. I don't know anything. But if I'm gone from this world, will some of that sadness disappear? If I go away, maybe it'll be the first time I'm ever useful. The world is dark. Everyone hates me. If nobody needs me, there's no reason for me to be here. He thinks of Akito asking, hey, you gonna die? The mirror shatters and he drops it to the ground. He gets dressed and takes off running. Older Yuki narrates, something burst in my heart. I didn't think, I just desperately wanted to move. I'm not sure if I wanted to hurt myself or cheer myself up. I probably don't know when to give up. Baby Yuki climbs the wall near the Soma gate, then sprints down the street away from the estate. He kept running, even though it was painful, even to unfamiliar places. He comes across a woman screaming and crying to the police. They tell her to settle down. It's early in the morning. But how the hell can she? She protests. Her precious daughter is missing. The police ask her to describe the girl again. I told you, she screams. She's a cute girl with a cute round hair tie, cute clothes, a cute voice, and a cute face. Got it? And the cop is like, not at all. I love this part so much. Of course, we finally get a good look at the woman, and it's Kyoko, Tohru's mother. What'll I do? She wails. Does something happen to her? You better start praying, because someone's going to pay, she says, cracking her knuckles, and baby Yuki thinks, so scary. I guess there are some moms out there that care about their kids. I love it.
Just like says she's gonna get her old gang together.
Yes, there are a lot of threats. I had to condense this for time, but yeah, this whole part is wonderful. I love how the cops were like, "No, I don't understand what you're talking about."
Yeah, they're just like Wakari-masen.
Yes, exactly. She's like, "Get it?" And he's like, "Wakari-masen, don't get it." He remembers passing a girl earlier while running. He runs back and finds baby Tohru crying, then starts to run back to get her mother, but Tohru runs after him, still crying. He wonders what to do. He can't let her get too close, but that doesn't seem to problem, since she trips right behind him as he thinks that. He stops and waits for her to stand again. She looks up, eyes full of tears, then gets up and follows him. He realizes that she has entrusted her entire world to him in this moment. She's relying on him, so she won't get lost again. Yuki stops and waits for her to see the path at every crossroad, and they end up in front of Tohru's apartment. Yuki turns and places the hat on her head. Look, we're here. You hung in there, he thinks. He runs off before more can be said. Tohru looks around, then cries for her mom. Yuki, having transformed into a rat, watches their reunion from around the corner. I'm glad I was a little useful. I'm happy. I'm so happy, he says. He cries. I know now. There was a moment where someone else needed me. Even if nobody remembers, even if you forget, there was, definitely. Later in the morning, Yuki returns, and the maids tend to him. Akito sees him in the doorway and scowls. This world isn't enveloped in light, Yuki narrates, but it's not dark either. There's more than just darkness. In the present, Kakeru prods. So what is this pitiful, pathetic thing he wanted to talk about? Yuki's been quietly contemplating for a while now. I was remembering something from my childhood, Yuki says. It's not a bright memory. From when I lived in isolation and my parents abandoned me. I met Honda-san around then. We met just once. I was so young that I didn't ask her name, so I didn't realize it was her until we met again, he says, remembering finding the hat in her room. She made me want to persevere. I decided to keep living because the world's not all dark, but it didn't work. I grew weak again. And thinking of Akito and his past in the dark room, he says, the darkness was so overwhelming. In the end, I became twisted too. Hope turned to despair, and thinking of Akio, he thinks, adoration turned to envy. I wanted him to like me, to become my friend. That's all I wanted. He tells Kakeru that he ultimately locked himself inside his own shell, rejecting the world to protect himself. He was hopeless, but Tohru appeared before him once again. To be with me, close to me, he says, remembering the many times they spent together. She listened to what someone like me had to say. She wasn't disgusted and didn't scold, time after time. She accepted me again and again. She's beloved to me, like how the sky feels close and yet so far away, like a mother. And then we cut to the credits. Dun dun dun. Yes. Oh my god, so shocking. We had no idea. Definitely haven't been commenting about it all this time. I do think, like, for a lot of people, the first time this was revealed in the manga, it was quite the surprise to some. Because they could have been... I think if you look back, and we've talked about it a couple of times in a couple of different episodes, like the way that she acts and the way that he sees her notices her doing things, like, I always think of that, like, time at the beach where he watches her kind of, like, covering up the kids with the blanket and stuff. Like, the things that he notices about her are kind of,
yeah,
you know, they're more nurturing and not things you maybe would notice about maybe you would notice something about a girl you like, but it's seems a little different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do think it's like when you're paying attention, like knowing where it's going, it is obvious like for a while before the reveal. But I think definitely if you're like you start reading the series, you have kind of a preconceived notion. You're like, oh, this is like a love triangle,
It's
and
definitely
so
set up
like
that way too because he
yeah, so
also flirts with
you're
her
yeah, so
earlier.
you're kind of like you're like okay, this is a love triangle. I know how these stories go, so you're kind of like programmed to
Yes.
read it in that light. But then then the mother thing like seems like it comes out of nowhere if you're not expecting it. But then when you like look back, you're like, okay, yeah, I
Oh,
can see this for a while.
yes. Yeah, and he definitely I think he hasn't admitted it yet, but he's about to admit that he was confused about it for a while. I guess
Yeah.
minor spoiler for next time.
Hmm.
And you can tell that if you look back at it too because
Hmm.
there were times where he like I think I always think of like the trip to the onsen where he gives her the white day gift, like the bow, the ribbon.
Hmm.
That's like peak flirty, awkward Yuki for
Hmm.
me. Like so there was definitely like yeah, yes, it's structured like a three-way would be in another piece of media, and Yuki also acts like that at the beginning. So,
Yeah.
yeah, he didn't do us any favor, didn't do the shippers any favors.
Yeah.
It's like the epitome of ship teasing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it turns out that Yuki's childhood was awful.
Yeah.
Although we had seen some of that before, because there was like the stuff with Rin where Yuki was thinking about, like they showed a scene from that same time where Yuki was talking about how Rin used to come visit. Rin and Haru used to come visit, and that scene was used again. So we've seen glimpses of like the way that he reacts to Akito. We know that they were
Yeah.
together as children and stuff. So
Yeah, we've known it's been bad, but now we get all the little horrible details.
and actually, I think what we've known is that it was bad when Yuki was a kid. Like Akito's age is not super clear
Hmm.
until like I think this point of the story.
Yeah.
Well, I guess there was. Did they show the thing of Shigure taking care of Akito before? I can't remember. I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think this is the first
This
time
is the
we
first
see
time.
like Shigure with the young Akito.
This specific chapter always freaks me out a little bit because Akito is so young
Hmm.
and so abusive to Yuki. Not that kids can't be abusive, but it's just
Yeah.
like it always like makes it so much worse. I don't know.
Hmm.
They're clearly almost the same age. Like they're only a couple
Hmm.
years apart or something.
Yeah, and I think the anime did a good job of emphasizing like how young Akito is. Like aside from like you see all the like toys in their room,
Yes.
like little kid toys that like Akito's like playing with and stuff, and like just the way he talks when he's like, you know what?
Yeah, so excited. It's
Yeah.
like, we're special. Did you know? Like the beginning. Until the part where he kind of snaps,
Hmm.
Akito definitely acts like a normal, kind of sheltered kid.
Yeah, and he seems like genuinely excited, like to have a like
Yeah,
new playmate and
companion.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. It's that all gets sort of like twisted later as Akito becomes more and more, I don't know, Akito's reality becomes more and more warped. And then also
Hmm.
you have all these like things where Yuki's overhearing all the people saying like his parents have gained from his like
Yeah.
almost like their sale of their child to the head of the family as a companion and stuff like that. So I don't think the details are ever exposed, but they're definitely like living it up
Yeah.
because of their being the parents of the rat.
Hmm.
So great.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it also did a good job of showing like how isolated Akito seems too.
Yes.
Like that was always like kind of a thing, but it's like the fact that like Yuki's like, oh, I was just inside with Akito all the time. It's
All the
like it seems
time.
like Akito's like trapped in that room almost as much as Yuki is.
Yes. And I think that's something that I didn't really think about until we read this part of the manga again, where I was like,
Hmm.
man, Akito doesn't go out. Like, Yuki goes to school. All the other kids go to school. Akito doesn't seem to
Hmm.
go to school.
Yeah.
Like, how is Akito learning? Akito has those, like, books. Also, the books that Akito has, like, they don't look like kids' books. Like,
Hmm.
they look, like, pretty dense. Like, I don't know what
Yeah.
Akito is reading, but,
Hmm.
you know. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also kind of a classic like isolated kid thing is reading a lot. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have a lot of socialization with other kids.
Nope. I mean, Yeah, and also like how
I'm
are you
not
gonna
speaking from experience as an only child in a military family who moved a lot.
Nope. I mean, I'm not speaking as like just an introvert, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, books are fun.
Yeah.
I'll stay here. Yeah, that's definitely true. And also, I think like it's the type of things that Akito has are very interesting to me. So the rooms are pretty sparse, and Akito has all the toys that Akito has are like old school like Japanese toys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's no like there's not even like stuffed animals or anything like that that Akito seems to have. Um, there's just those like little beanbag things. I looked up what all the things are because I was just curious.
Mm-hmm.
And like the like kendama, the like cup and ball and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think we've seen we've seen like Yuki's parents' house. Like they have like a less traditional house and stuff like that too. I think like those kind of things make it seem like the Soma family and stuff is almost like removed from time. It's almost like they're frozen, and Akito is also isolated in there. Akito's not experiencing a world beyond like some of these like more traditional things, I guess, which is interesting to me. So I think they did do a good job of like painting a picture about what Akito's childhood was like, which we haven't seen yet.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to all the like terrifying stuff.
Yeah.
One of the more like creepy early parts of the manga where Akito's like painting the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Such a good time, always.
Yeah. Yeah, and I always thought, like, it does make a really nice contrast when, like, Yuki's talking about, it's like, he had temper tantrums, but it wasn't like he is now. And they had, like, the bit where he, like, knocks over the bowl of rice and, like, yells at him about coughing, but then, like, once he stops, he, like, calms down and just picks up the bowl of rice.
Yeah, he
like,
kind of looks like, oh, that was kind of dumb of me to get that mad.
Yeah.
And then picks it up. Like,
mm-hmm.
he has, like, a little bit of...
Yeah, like, almost apologetic. Not quite, but, like...
Almost.
That way of, like, kids where, like, they know they shouldn't have done that, but, like, they're not going to apologize because they're kids.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, he probably couldn't, like, control the outburst of feelings anyway, so it's kind of, like... It's just, like, you have that little, like, oh, that was stupid moment. And then he just kind of, like, picks it up.
Yeah, and then, like, compared to that, like, absolute, like, almost a mental break when he's, like, painting the walls, and it's, like, getting all over his face and clothes, and it's, like, pushing Yuki down.
Just the walls and the floor. Yeah. Was anybody else just, like, having a visceral reaction to, like, getting stuff on the tatami, or was it just me? I was like, wow, that's a lot of ink there.
Yeah.
That's gonna be an expensive fix. I guess if someone's rich, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then he pushes Yuki. Nope. He pushes Yuki to the floor, and that's when he like starts the narrative with Yuki. So Akito clearly thinks that something happened. So Yuki hints at a couple things where he says like something happened, and he didn't know why Akito was so upset all the time, and blah blah blah. Like obviously something was going on, but Yuki doesn't seem to know what it was. Yeah. And then that sort of like mental break is the kicker, and then Akito decides that. First, Akito decides that they need to be the same, so Yuki has to have this sort of perspective as well. And then during that like confrontation, Akito is like, "No, wait, I'm the one who's special. Without me, like you wouldn't be needed." And then kind of flips that whole narrative and starts the abuse.
Yeah, and it's that kind of like it comes off as like really desperate from Akito's point of view.
Yeah,
like,
it does.
Like his eyes widen and he's like, no, that's not right. It's like, I'm needed, I'm important.
Yeah, it's like, no.
You're not important.
Like, I think I wrote in my notes, like, sudden realization. I think it says in my quote-unquote acting notes. Yeah, it seems like he's just like, no, wait, that's not right. Because, I don't know. Yeah, it seems like Akito is upset about needing to be needed as well.
Yeah.
And, like, is able to then manipulate Yuki with the same narrative.
Yeah.
Or something. Like, that's kind of what it sounds like from what Akito's saying to me. So.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It seems like he feels the need to, like, push Yuki down in order to, like...
Yeah, make himself feel
okay, like, about whatever is going on in his life right now. Like,
Did we have this discussion during the anime? But I know when we talked about it in the manga, the beach arc, when we were talking about Akito trying to put down Tohru. And we were like, is it a superiority or inferiority complex? It's like, it's kind of both.
Yeah. I know we talked about it in the manga. I'm not sure if
I don't think we talked about it in the beach.
The anime. Yeah.
I guess. Well, I mean, I just said when it was. It was like during the beach. There's this scene where Akito is like, "Oh, that Tohru Honda, she's so ugly and awful. Nobody's friends with her. Ha ha ha," or whatever. Nobody wants to be with her. Who wants to hang out with a monster? She's a monster too. Whatever. I forget exactly how it goes, but like, yeah, we had this. It was like, is it inferiority or superiority? I don't know. It's kind of both. Yeah. But yeah, so it's the same thing with Yuki, where Akito's just like, no, you need me, and without me, nobody needs you. Mm-hmm. Which was reinforced by everybody around him, unfortunately, for Yuki. So
yeah,
until he had his friends that then he lost, which is also so sad. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was so happy to have friends. That was so upsetting.
I don't remember which part of the episode it was. I watched this the first time, but teared up. And it might have been that part. I forget.
Just his like uncertain but hopeful. So he's like, friends.
Yeah. Yes. Well, even when he meets Kyo is clearly scowling, but he's like, he's like, Kyo's like, yo, are you the rat? And he's like, oh, yeah, I am. And he's like, so like, even in the manga, it was like so heart-wrenching because he looks so like just hopeful, exactly the way that you described it. Like, he's like, oh, I could maybe make another friend with this other Junichi guy. And it's like, no. Kyo wasn't ready. Yeah. I mean, he's still not in this part of the story. Yeah. But yeah, poor Yuki. Yuki's defining character trait is his optimism. And it's clearly part of his personality because he was like that as a child, I think.
Yeah.
He says later that he's like, oh, I something like, my heart burst or whatever. I can't remember exactly what he says. But it's like, yeah, it's just your like inner drive to be optimistic about the world, I think, which is nice. It's refreshing after all of this. Yeah. Baby Yuki, he just wanted to have friends.
I know.
That scene, all those scenes with Ayame are just like, he's so sassy. It really puts into perspective. Ayame, we've seen him feel super guilty about their childhood, and like we've seen that scene before of him kind of brushing Yuki off. But I feel like with all of this, now that we know all of this, it's like so much worse. It kind of like puts Ayame's character in perspective a little bit more too.
Yeah, like the bit when they're asking like why no one's like come to visit Yuki, and they're like talking about Ayame, and they're like, does he know he's his brother?
Yeah. Oh, it's so harsh. And even Yuki is like, yeah, the kid they said was my older brother. When he's talking about him at New Year's, it's like, did they not ever meet? Like, it's so crazy.
Yeah, I feel like from Ayame's perspective, I feel like a lot of the issues that like it was probably so abstract to him that this kid was his
he had
brother.
No idea.
Like, yeah,
and he also had no idea. Like, we know that we haven't seen any indication that Ayame was particularly, like a favorite or abused by Akito. Like, that wasn't really part of his backstory at all, or his pain that we've seen. Yeah. So like, it's possible. But maybe he didn't even know that Akito was like that. Like, maybe he didn't know that was going on at all.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people didn't know, like, at least to the extent of what was going on with Yuki.
He definitely didn't know what was going on with Yuki.
Yeah.
But I guess, like, not even... And probably not other people either. But maybe Akito had started with Yuki and then didn't even, like... I don't know. He did later comment about Haru. We had seen a long time ago that Haru also... Akito tried to give him this narrative about that he was dumb. Everybody said he was dumb, which was also helpfully reinforced by the family too.
Yeah. Yeah, like I think everyone like, knew Akito was like awful to people, but like I don't think anyone, at least most people, didn't really know the extent of abuse that Yuki in particular suffered at Akito's hands. Because it does seem to be like kind of an extraordinary situation.
Yeah, other than like Rin, I guess. Definitely.
Even that's like a very different kind of abuse.
That's true. And it was also much later. Like it was when Rin was in high school. Rin has her high school uniform on. This is like Yuki's like, clearly a tiny baby.
Yeah. So it was more like one like awful reactive incident rather than like an ongoing like constant emotional abuse.
Yeah. Akito seems to be very observant. Akito's good at picking up, like, what are the other things that are going on in someone's, like, life and then using that against them. Like, super, to manipulate them.
Yeah, because, like, all the specific things that Akito brings up to Yuki, where it's like, oh, yeah, the cat blames you for all this awful stuff. And, yeah, the ox hates you, too. And also your parents abandoned you. Like,
yeah. Parents gonna come see you, buddy? You gonna die? Like,
yeah.
So cruel. Definitely. And he's like, yeah, nobody needs you. Nobody's coming for you. It's just me and you.
Mm-hmm.
Also, this world is awful, by the way.
Yeah.
I feel like the banquet scene says a lot about the Junishi's sort of like dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
There's like the scene of little baby Momiji hugging Hattori.
I know.
Didn't we talk about, wasn't that around when his mom's memories were also erased?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know we were like debating on like whether that
What
was
the
before
timeline
or
was.
after it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to tell, but he's little.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did like a count. Like I was like I like paused it and counted, and I was like, "Where are the numbers?" And I was like, "Oh, Kisa and Hiro
Yeah,
are like
Kiso and Hiro must be
babies
babies.
now."
Yeah, they had to have been because I think
Yeah,
they're.
because I was like, "There's only 10 other chairs."
Yeah. Kiso and Hiro were pretty young because I think they're like 12 and the kids are like 16. Like, so
Mm-hmm.
Yuki, yeah, they're probably like 2 or 3 or something at the
Yeah.
time of this. Rin's still pretty young too in this. I always find it interesting in that scene where she's sitting with Shigure and Ayame. So you have like the bunch where it's like Momiji's just talking to Hattori, but I think he was probably hanging out with like Haru and Kagura and Ritsu. Like Kagura and Ritsu are kind of buddy buddies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's like Yuki, Kureno, and Akito, the like sourpuss squad.
Yeah.
at the top head of the table.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think it's
Or
kind
the
of interesting.
sorry,
that,
I should say the sad squad, not the sourpuss
yeah,
squad.
just sad.
Just sad, not boring, just sad.
Yes. Yeah, I just do think it's interesting a little bit with like Rin, where she's like leaning on Shigure, like because like she does seem to like in the current timeline have some kind of weird like trust in Shigure.
Yeah, she seems
like,
to. I don't know where it comes from, but she does
yeah,
seem
so.
to. I mean, he was probably nice to her. Like he didn't have anything against her. I think Shigure has things that he wants from other people, or like his schemes. But I don't think he has any scheme with Rin. I think he's just trying to. In the scenes that we've seen with between the two of them, I think he's just trying to keep her at arm's length from whatever his sort of deal is. Like that's what it seems like to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like as children they had some kind of close relationship because she was hanging out with them.
Mm-hmm.
She calls him Shigure Nissan too, like older brother Shigure.
Yeah.
So she doesn't call him like Hattori Oji-chan, like Kisa calls him. Anyway, I'm just laughing because of like Toru's reaction when she says that. It's funny.
Yeah, I did like all the Kyo and Yuki stuff.
So good.
Which is I think it's kind of like sort of at the heart of this, and we get like the kind of confirmation of the the like at least from Yuki's perspective the anger being like misplaced jealousy basically at this point.
Yes, he has that one. It was kind of smushed at the end of the episode, but he has his great like he helped bring Tohru home and that gave him hope, but then still the darkness of the family and the abuse of Akito was overwhelming. And still, of course, Kyo fostered that hatred of him forever until the series started, and probably still somewhat now. It seems to have lessened recently. But like the first thing he did in the very first part of the series was try to attack Yuki, right? So
yeah, I really like the visual language in this episode around like framing that relationship, like both in the flashback scenes where like when he's looking out the car window and stuff, where it's all centered around like Kyo, and we already know that he's like Yuki has been jealous of like how easily Kyo is like able to like kind of make friends with people or just be liked by people. And so where it's how they had it framed with like Momiji comes up and like throws himself on like Kyo's back and he's like grumping about it, and then Kagura comes and they're all just kind of laughing in the group, and how that's like all centered on Kyo from Yuki's perspective, where I think in the manga it was a little more broadly framed. That's true. It's just sort of a general like, oh, the other children have fun.
Yeah, it's like Yuki or Kyo and Haru walking together. We know that they have a pretty close relationship because Kyo is the one who was like, I had to lead you to the bathroom when you were a kid so you didn't get lost. So they're walking together. Yeah, and then Momiji comes up, and then the car like pulls away. You see Kagura come, and the car pulls away on Kyo's face, like looking horrified that she's like about to jump on him, which is really funny.
Yeah.
So that whole part was adorable. But yeah, it is definitely centered around Kyo.
Yeah, and then I love the transition at the end of like when he's talking about how like what did he say, like hope turned to like jealousy or whatever it was. I can't remember.
Would you like me to find?
Yeah,
it's a good line.
It's probably written up here. Yeah, the adoration turned to envy thing.
Yes.
Yeah,
hope turned to despair.
and how it has like baby Kyo like transitions into like angry teenage Kyo, and like Yuki
Yeah.
looks kind of startled for a minute and then kind of resigned.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that was a great little scene that's in there. It's only like a couple seconds, maybe.
Yeah, I like the use of like perspective in that scene because like in the manga, it's just sort of a scene of them like fighting, but having it like directly like kind of Yuki's POV of seeing Kyo's expression and then having his expression change from kind of like looking startled to just looking like resigned. Like I guess this is how it is, kind of.
It's like, I guess he still hates me. I guess that's how it's gonna be. Like,
Yeah.
yes, and then becoming envious of Kyo. Yes, it's great, and it's very interesting take on their relationship, I guess, because yeah, we've seen him like comment about how he is jealous of Kyo or envious of Kyo.
Yeah.
A couple of times, and you know, obviously they fight, but they haven't been fighting like in the same way as they did before.
Yeah.
So we don't
like Haru told Rin, their auras have softened around each other.
Yeah, in whatever Haru way one communicates these things. Which is definitely true, but like, and Haru says it as Tohru's influence, but before that, it was just this sort of like twisted adoration.
Yeah.
And we still have,
like,
as far as we know, it's Kyo's perspective that he hates Yuki because he blames him for the suicide of his mother's suicide and whatnot.
Yeah, and it's like we've known like as audience members for a while that like their hatred of each other was like stemmed out of like jealousy and like wanting what the other had. But so it's kind of nice to see like one of the characters in that relationship be like, yeah, that's what's going on.
That's actually
like,
what's happening.
Yeah, it's like I acknowledge this. Yes.
He's very self-aware. Kyo, on the other hand, I think is still trying to suppress it.
Yeah.
I think he did say that. Sorry, you say what you were going to say. I think you're going to say what I'm trying to think.
No, I was going to say it's like I think he probably like realizes deep down, but out loud he's still saying that like no, Yuki's
no,
to
like
blame
fuck that
for
guy. Yes.
Yeah.
Like Yuki didn't cause his mother's suicide.
No.
They did say before. Is this the first time it was revealed that it was suicide? I forget.
I think it's been heavily implied, but I think this is the first time someone said it.
Oh.
I think we had the bit where he was like, my mom died. She died in an accident. Like,
but then
they started to say it, and then
they also had like a flashback where it looked like she was falling in front of a train too, which was sort of shown in the manga, but it was much more obfuscated.
Yeah,
I think I remember discussing this at some point in the anime when we were in the anime discussions, because we were like, oh, now we can say this because sometimes things are a little clearer in the anime. Yeah. But yeah, definitely it's the first time that Akito is the one who delivers this news.
Textures, you can obscure anything in a manga.
Also, like shitty printing. Like we had, there were some things we were like, "Who is this?" I can't remember which thing it was. Something that was super dark. And then I had like the collector's edition one, and I was like, "Look how clear this print is."
It's really obvious.
It's really obvious. Yes. Good old Tokyo Pop paper quality, early 2000s manga paper quality.
During the manga boom, when they were like, "Oh man, people are buying this shit.
Turn this shit out." Yes. No. Unfortunately. But anyway, I don't remember how. But so Akito says this to Yuki as another way of further, I don't know, abusing him. Yeah. Gaslighting him.
Further, being a terrifying child.
Yes.
Like that's another thing. It's like what is going on with your childhood? You shouldn't be talking about suicide.
I was just thinking while I was writing this, I was like, I wonder when as a child or as a teen or whatever, I learned what suicide was. Like, how old is Akito? Like, I don't know. It's really hard to tell. Clearly, he's
definitely
young.
Older than Akito's age.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I was wondering about that myself. Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess it depends. It sounds like Akito's hearing everything that everybody's talking about, right? Like, with the ox being stupid and the like. Mm-hmm. I mean, hearing all the hot goss. Yuki's hearing all the hot goss in the family too, right? Yes. So I think the same.
Like he's definitely like repeating a lot of stuff verbatim, but like. I'm just because he knows it'll hurt, but like the fact that it's like, oh yeah, the cat's mom killed herself. They said it was an accident, but it was suicide. Like that's not something a child you hear from a child.
No. That's definitely like some CSI shit. Like I watch a lot of crime drama shit, or like a lot.
I was gonna say it's like they let Akito watch R-rated movies.
No, yeah, they're like, oh, Akito, it's time for your favorite show to come on, and it's like in a criminal justice system. Where... Yes. We've never made any Law and Order jokes on this show, have we? I don't remember. Oh, I love Law and Order so much. but I definitely wasn't allowed to watch it as a child.
Yeah. Like, what did you think of the episode, Akito? They deserved it.
Yeah. By the way, this world is only darkness.
Yeah.
And the maids are like, okay, honey.
You're like, that's nice.
The scene, Akito was clearly, so I think it's there's an interesting social dynamic that's happening here too. Like one of my other favorite parts, which is creepy, by my favorite, I mean it's creepy, is when Akito is like, oh, like checking in with the doctor and is like, oh, is it okay, Yuki? Oh no, poor Yuki. Can I go and like visit him? And they're like, oh, it's so nice of you, Akito. Oh, you should go visit him, Akito. And then he's like, hey, you gonna die? Like once they're out of earshot, it's like, oh, what are you doing? So I think Akito's been, as a child, was probably running around and like playing them. I mean, as an adult, or however old Akito is, like I don't even know. Is Akito a teenager? He doesn't seem. I don't know. It's so hard to tell children and their ages in anime, but not that much older than the main trio, it seems.
Yeah.
I think like
younger than
Shigure.
But
yes.
older than
older than the main trio.
Older than the main trio, yeah.
Yeah.
So probably like
late
19, 20,
22?
21, something like that. Yeah. Somewhere I'd say somewhere in the range of like 19 to 23.
Yeah, probably. Because Shigure is 26 or 27.
I think, yeah.
Something like that. And then you can see clearly Shigure is like a young teen or late tween when he's like comforting Akito in that one scene.
Yeah.
And Yuki's in elementary school, so that would make Akito like maybe like 10-ish. I don't know. It's so hard to tell. Anyway, the point is, still young. And I don't even know where I was going with this conversation.
Yeah. Well, I was going to make a comment that like Akito seems to have some like weird combination of like coddling and neglect as a child.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Coddling on behalf of everyone, and then I don't know. Is just being super isolated.
Like, it does kind of seem like they just like it just kind of seemed like they just like shoved Akito in a room with Yuki and was like, okay, you guys have fun. Bye. And like left them there all day.
Like, and Akito's like, swirl the black. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. It does seem like that. They're just like, oh, good, we have a companion for Akito. But it seems like Akito doesn't seem to be discontent with being inside. Well, isn't it true that Akito is like sickly or whatever? Like maybe that's their excuse for like not, letting him go outside or whatever. I don't know. There was another interesting thing I noticed you were talking about sort of the visual language and like some of the visual choices in this and how they kind of like isolated Akito. They served to show Akito's isolation or like Yuki, the way Yuki was treated and stuff like that. There's an interesting scene where after Yuki transforms, Akito is like, see, didn't I tell you? He has this whole rant and he's like inside behind a closed window. And then at the end, he's like, don't delude yourself. And that's the line that's said after the window opens.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that was interesting.
On the head, but...
It kind of reminded me of the scene from like Haru's flashback.
I think it's actually a similar window.
Where Yuki was inside and...
That's right! Yuki was sitting inside, being sickly. There's a thing about windows and doors in this series. In fact, I also have a note that like when Yuki transforms, there was a loud like door closing sound.
Yeah, like we've talked about the whole like the concept of inside and outside is like a pretty strong thing.
Yeah, it's like shut back inside, I guess. Yeah. In Yuki's case, when he transforms into a tiny baby rat. Yeah. Which was adorable and sad.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you see the little rat drop, but then it's like this sad door slamming thud on the plate on that, and you're like, oh no. Yeah. Only bad things can happen.
Everything's gone terribly.
This wasn't in the plan. It was interesting. Speaking other things that I thought were cool about how the episode was structured mechanically was almost all of the narration is from Yuki's older voice, like his older perspective. So sometimes he says stuff as a child, but a lot of it was just narrated like him looking back on it. Yeah. And even the very first part when he meets Akito, it sounded like him saying, when he meets Akito and starts crying and he says, he thinks I couldn't help it. And then he says something unnamed and like from deep in my heart or whatever, deep in my soul, I forget exactly what it says. That then switches into Yuki's older voice. Anyway, I just thought it was interesting the way they use his narration. We had speculated about this because we were talking about wondered how much content they would cover and how they would do it because it's all like super introspective, these chapters. Listen, we didn't even talk about the Tohru part yet.
Yeah, I do want to say I especially like the kind of echoey, overlapping narration at the beginning when he was
Yes.
talking about the like conflicting feelings he felt
Yes.
on seeing Akito.
Well acted.
Yeah, it was good.
I enjoyed that part. It gave me the willies, which it should.
Yes.
Because the curse is sketchy. I think it's pretty obvious at this point.
Yes.
Like the maid in this scene is like, oh, it's a beautiful bond that they have. Oh, they're crying because their beautiful bond. It's like, no.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, meanwhile, baby Akito's like, I love you, but I hate you.
Yes, exactly. Do you think Akito feels the same way? Probably. Do you think it's like mutual? We never get Akito's perspective on this, so this is our speculation, I guess. We're venturing into headcanon territory. Just like making Hiro's hair into a wool sweater or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, I do wonder if he like felt anything when he like first saw all of his Zodiac people.
Underlings.
Yes.
He has this smile. I don't know how they like managed to draw it this way, but it really reminds me of like, you know, like a happy Buddha smile like statue. It has this like very like ethereal kind of quality when they first meet. Like you're meeting a child prodigy, you know, like you're meeting a child God in human form.
Yeah, it is very like kind of serene and otherworldly.
Serene.
And,
yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
He just puts down his book, even though he's clearly a tiny child. Like, you know, like, Akito definitely has an otherworldly quality as a child. We see, like, we talked about how Akito's also, like, clearly sort of, like, not, what, isolated isn't the word that I'm looking for, sheltered kind of child. Like, we've definitely seen that, but Akito's also represented here as having those sort of, like, kind of ethereal qualities, too, that you would expect, I guess, in your God in flesh type person. I want to talk about the Tohru part, and then we'll talk about the rest, I guess. We kind of talked about how Tohru's his mummy, but... well, and also, I guess we could say, like, before that, it's nice that he was finally able to talk to somebody about all these things, because obviously he didn't feel comfortable, like, bringing it up with a Yame or anything like that, even though they're getting closer, and clearly it was something that hurt him a lot as a child. So he's finally able to have more friends. Yuki's... Oh, I finally remember what I was going to say earlier when we were talking about Kyo, which is like, Yuki is envious of Kyo because he thinks Kyo makes friends easily and that people are attracted to him and whatever. And he's like, oh, I closed up my shell. I'm not useful and whatever. All these things that like Akito ingrained into him. But we talked about how uncomfortable it is when he starts going to the student council because they're like, yeah, we're friends now. Or like, we got to work together. Like they have this sort of an unspoken understanding about how they're going to work together in this social group. And it's so hard for Yuki, but clearly so rewarding because now he's divulging all these things to Kakeru. So
yeah.
They're good friends. Or more than friends, depending on how you feel about it.
Yeah. It's like he has someone who's like, you know, he can trust with these emotions, but who's distant enough from all the family stuff.
And also not Tohru. Like, he doesn't really tell her these things either. I've never really thought about why. I don't know.
I think he feels somewhat embarrassed about the way he feels about Tohru.
Yeah,
so, like, she's
that's true.
Tangled up in...
She's also basically in the family now.
Yeah. She's definitely not distant from it.
No. Yeah, it would definitely, like, it's not like it would be weird, but it would definitely, like, change her perspective about the family, so maybe he didn't want to tell her that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he also just, like doesn't want to, like, burden her with...
Yes. His feels.
Yeah.
But anyway, listen, I want to talk about... I want to talk about the most important part. No, I mean, it's not the most important part. Although this episode was great, actually. I just have to say it was I enjoyed seeing this part animated because I think it's like a very key part of the series that we've been building up to for a while. Whether you like Yuki as a character or not, I think you can really empathize with his situation.
Yeah, and I think even like, obviously Yuki's the center of this, but it's a really important episode for like the perspective of a lot of characters. Like you get kind of a different perspective on like Kyo's stuff and Akito's stuff and kind of everyone else to a lesser degree, just seeing more of that kind of flashback.
Yeah, I think a long time ago we answered questions that were like, what would you want to see animated? We were just like, all this, or what would you want to see like drawn that you couldn't what would you want to see more of it? It's just like everything. I think I said like one of the things that would be interesting to see is like some of the past like Soma stuff before the series starts too, because I think it would be very revealing about their family dynamic. So anyway, but yeah, it turns out that it was Kyo's hat via Yuki. I can't remember how much of this was revealed before, but this is like the full reveal now.
Yeah, the full
story.
Hat story.
Yes, the full hat story where it was Kyo's hat and it blew. There was a long debate also in the fandom when this was being published. It was like, whose hat is it? Because it's obviously Kyo or Yuki's, but yes, it was Kyo's hat, and then it went to Yuki, and then Yuki wore it when he went and ran, and then he found Tohru and gave it to her. So and he led her home. So. And he was needed. I think that was the time that I was tearing up.
Yeah,
he's also
I like that
related.
scene too, where like they show him like stopping in the like intersections until she sees him again, and then he keeps going.
It's really cute.
Yeah,
I like how he's like, no, I can't let her touch me, but obviously she can't catch up with him.
Yeah,
it's really cute.
I also like how you can see baby Tohru like as we first see Yuki running around.
Yeah, I only noticed that the second time that I was watching it, but I may have been distracted with a cat. I forget what happened.
Yeah, I was like, oh, there she
is. She's there. Yeah, and then he is like, oh yeah, I saw that girl, and then runs back and he's like, I gotta get the mom, and then she follows him, which is great. He's like, oh no, like he didn't expect that.
Yeah, it's cute. Like it's a funny little bit where he's like, oh no, what do I do? But then like how instantly he resolves to help her when she falls down and looks back up with those teary eyes, like.
And he's like, oh, I know that she's trusting me, and so that she doesn't get lost again. Yeah. And it's like, and then she did the same thing for you.
Yeah. It's like we talked about like the last episode about like we already talked a little bit about like Yuki's like optimism, but like also his empathy, and I think like both of those are really on display in his like childhood.
Yes.
Both in that scene with Tohru, but even like the like really tragic scene before that where he's like, you know, has his like child version of suicidal ideation.
Yes.
Where he's like, but he's like thinking about it where he's like, I don't know Kyo's pain, maybe if I disappear it'll make it feel better.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like, oh, he's like, maybe if everybody hates me, then maybe that's the best thing that I can do, which is never the best thing that you can do, but no. But yeah, he's kind of like, I don't know why he's like this. And
like as anybody, but especially as a child, it'd be like easy to be just like, oh, that guy's a jerk.
Yeah, it would be.
He's like, oh, he's obviously in a lot of pain and sees me as the cause of it. Like,
yeah, he's able to sort of put all those things together as a tiny child.
Yeah,
it's
so sad.
I know. It's just interesting how later when we meet them, it's like they have a mutual hatred for each other. Like it seems mutual. Kyo is definitely the like aggressor, but Yuki doesn't give a shit about him either. Yeah. And this perspective changes things so much, I think, about them. And obviously, I think we've seen them you can tell that hatred was only, I'm not going to say skin deep, but it clearly wasn't the full story because it's sort of been ebbing away over time, right? It's been ebbing over time, I should say. So yeah, anyway, yes, it's sad. It's very sad.
Yeah.
But then he helped Tohru and it was
they
great.
They could have been friends.
I know. But Kyo was, Kyo's childhood was so fucked up. Like, it was also so fucked up.
Own pile of issues that, like...
Did they show any scenes from the funeral before? I forget. I think they did during the True Form stuff,
yeah,
right?
I think so.
But I can't remember if they showed this scene in particular. Like, she shows, like, calming him down.
Yeah.
They showed something.
I think we might have seen, like, kind of, like, silhouette versions of, like, Kyo yelling at the funeral.
At people, yeah.
But I'm not sure that we saw that it was his bio dad and Kazuma.
Oh, that's right. We can tell that it's him now because... Yeah. Bio dad, yes.
Well, Kazuma's his real dad.
Yeah, Kazuma's his best dad. Everybody knows that.
Yes.
Yeah, I always forget how it was Kazuma, because they were basically like introduced at the funeral, so it's Kazuma kind of like holding him back while he's yelling at his dad, his bio dad, as you specified. I'll always love the scene where Kyoko describes Tohru as a cute girl with a cute face and wearing cute clothes and a cute hair bobble and like whatever.
I love Kyoko. I love the contrast between Kyoko, like, you know, kind of stereotypical, like, hysterical mother kind of thing, and then her, like, threatening to, like, rain down vengeance on everybody.
It's also so sad that
if you don't find my adorable child, I'll kick your ass.
Yeah, exactly. But then you have this turnaround where Yuki's like, man, so scary. And then he's like, I guess some moms do care about their kids. And it's like,
yeah, I know, that's so sad.
That line is like one of the saddest ones of all.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he had a similar line at some point. I forget what it was, though. Where it's just like, yeah, I guess some people do care about their like, family.
Yeah, I think...
Or maybe I'm thinking of something else. I can't
yeah,
remember.
when he's at the beach when they're talking about Hiro's mom.
Yes.
And he's talking about, like, oh, I guess, like, some people have kids because they want them.
Yes,
like,
that's what it was. Sometimes he just has these little, like, one-off lines where it's just like, oh, boy. There's a lot in there.
It's like, I need to sit down
I know.
for a minute.
Let me just click pause. Need to take a breather. It's okay, because we knew it was going into the good part of the episode,
Yes.
the uplifting part of the episode. It's funny because this episode, I always think of it as being pretty positive because he has this incident with Tohru, but then it doesn't end on a positive note. It kind of goes back into like, and then now we're here, and it's like,
yeah,
it wasn't great. His relationship with Kyo, it's not like everything changed for him. Like it got worse again, I guess. And
yeah, but it's kind of like it's upsetting, but I always kind of like that where it's like. Like, he had that one positive moment that was enough to keep him, like, kind of going on or whatever, but, like, it didn't fix everything. And, like, he still kind of fell back into despair after, like, because he's still in a fucking awful situation.
Yes. Yes, it didn't go away. And, in fact, it has this interesting scene that I don't remember if it was shown in the manga like that, but it's, like, Yuki is like, oh, like, hope became whatever. The darkness was too much for me, he says, or whatever. And it shows Akito standing there, like, clearly older and taller and bigger and whatever. But face completely silhouetted and whatever. And and I think that also hints at how he talks about Akito and like how we see the transition to today where now Akito is like much more dangerous and unhinged and abusive. Yeah. Compared to as a child.
Yeah. I might say another thing I liked with the anime is like when he's talking about how like he heard those words from Akito every day. We had that little bit of like kind of a montage of like Akito talking. Like obviously saying the same like awful shit like time after time.
So crazy.
And so you can easily imagine that like keeps on going even as like they both get older. So.
Yeah, I don't think Akito's stance on life just changed.
Yeah.
I don't think Yuki's did either. I mean, I think he's always had that sort of hope deep down. Akito was not able to crush it, which is part of his character that we really see that shines in this episode, like you said. And throughout this sort of part of the series, starting kind of in the beach. I think we get to see that. Yeah. It was sad. But yeah, I think Furupa's a good series in that way because it's like, oh, sometimes... But he's like, the end sort of closing statement is like, you know, life isn't completely dark. There are always good things and bad things and whatever. Yeah. And I think Furupa is a good series for bringing that sort of like realism to things where it's like, not one good thing doesn't change everything and like, but one bad thing doesn't change everything either. Or a lot of bad things don't change everything. So. Yeah. Something that I appreciate about it. It's demonstrated by other things, but I can think of more examples from like kind of later in this series, so we can't talk about them right now. Yeah. I don't have any other things that I wanted to mention about this that aren't spoilery.
Yeah, I think that's most of what I had.
Most? What's missing? Everything? Yeah. You're like, I liked the part where he wore the hat.
Yeah. It was good.
I like how the mirror exploded in his hand. I was like, I can't make a joke about this right now, but it's bad.
Yeah.
It's fine. Made more sense when he dropped it on the ground in the manga.
Yeah.
I appreciate
I think it's supposed to be more of a metaphor in the anime.
Yes.
It's really happening.
He's like, and then my psyche exploded, just like this mirror.
It's like my view of myself shattered and I didn't know what to do.
So I ran. I just kept
so
running. I don't think I've ever made a Forrest Gump joke on this.
You made a Forrest Gump joke and I made a flock of seagulls joke.
You know, 6 of one, half dozen of another. So you just ran. I feel like it makes me sound like I like Forrest Gump, it's just like one of those things that I've seen so many times.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with it.
I actually do kind of like it. I don't think it's like great, but it kind of draws you in when you watch it.
And I think I appreciate it's Tom Hanks, right? Yeah, I appreciate his ability to do so many different things.
Yeah, he's a very good actor.
He
He's
is.
enthralling in like anything he's in.
Yeah, he has a very he kind of has like a sort of, I think, like kind of a everyday physical appearance, but he has some kind of crazy charisma that you just like. He's really like, I don't know, like
Yeah.
he can be screaming Wilson, and you're like, oh, Tom Hanks. Oh,
You're like, I wasn't gonna watch this movie about a man trapped in an airport terminal for decades, but I guess I am now.
I appreciate Big the most, but yeah, it's like he can play like a 12-year-old child in an adult body, and he can be a castaway. And
Yeah.
Is that another train?
It
We've been
is.
blessed by so many trains today. We haven't even finished our non-spoilers. I had to make Tom Hanks shows. It's like, and this concludes our panel on
on Tom Hanks.
Tune in for our podcast about Tom Hanks movies. We watch every Tom Hanks movie.
That could go a long time.
Yeah, that could. Okay, good. Anyway, tune in next time for episode 22, which is called That's Not What I Want. What will happen? Only people who've read the manga will know. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So anyway, listen, I have some things to say to you about Tom Hanks. How about that scene in have you seen I almost said Spirited Away. Have you seen Castaway?
I actually haven't.
Oh, okay, well then I won't spoil anything. Never mind. I was going to tell you something that horrifies me. That's fine. Don't mind me. I do love every time we're out on every time we would go to like a thing later and see like, you know, like an old volleyball or an old soccer ball just like, you know, like garbage in a river, and you're like, Wilson! Every time. Without fail.
Yeah.
Or we go to Girls Like Camp and we're like, I have created fire! These are all quotes I'm sure that you know from the movie.
It's like I'm aware of it as a cultural touchstone.
Exactly.
I haven't actually seen the film.
Just being like, rule number 1 is don't talk about Fight Club.
Yes.
We should have a Brad Pitt podcast too. He's good.
There we go.
He's in a bunch of shit. And then we can talk about Burn After Reading, which is like one of the most hilarious movies of all time as far as I'm concerned.
Tom Cast and the Bradcast.
The Bradcast. The Pit Cast.
The Pod Pit.
The Pit Pod. Like 2 pits in a pod. On a roll tonight with the terrible jokes. I can't remember. I think it was the episode we were talking about all the crazy headcanons about shearing people as sheeps and whatnot in the Soma family, and someone's comment was like, Ellen and Kayla are on fire today with the bad jokes. I was like, yes, we are. This is the epitome of peak content. Anyway, how about spoilers?
Yes.
So there's some things that were interesting to me. I'm having so much fun gossiping about Tom Hanks, but there are some things that were very interesting. Like, I thought it was interesting how... So I think there's a lot of similarities and parallels that are drawn between Yuki and Akito in this episode. And the reason I'm choosing to talk about this in the spoilers is because, like, we don't see a lot of Akito's, like, deal until later about how isolated she actually was and stuff. So it's hinted at, and we definitely talked it up in our discussion earlier because it's clearly visible, but it's just easier to see in retrospect. But Yuki describes not wanting to see, being uncomfortable with being looked at with like apathetic and hateful eyes. And it reminded me of Akito saying that she didn't want everyone to like look at her with those like distant eyes after the curse breaks. It's almost like they fear kind of the same thing, I guess, which is the rejection from other people.
Yeah, I think Akito was like clearly like super excited to have like a friend that seemed like kind of an equal to her. Like she started out talking, it's like, look, we're the same. Like,
yeah, we're both special. You're special like me. That all changes, of course, when Kureno's curse breaks, which is the inciting incident for all of this.
Yeah. And then her like worldview shatters, and so she like becomes desperate to be like, I'm needed, I'm important.
And I mean, it's something that Yuki wanted to feel too. He just didn't, didn't go and abuse people to try to get that feeling.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I didn't realize about that, but yeah, Yuki's like desire to like feel needed rather than like taking from other people is a big part of his
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's more, and he says it a lot. He touches on it a lot in this episode in his narration, where he's like, "I just wanted somebody. She needed me in this moment, and I knew that it was important, and like it made me really happy that I was able to be there for her and stuff like that." Yeah. And I feel like Akito kind of wants the same thing, which is interesting, and I never really thought about it this way till seeing this having read all the way through the series and then now going back and watching the anime for this specific part. I was like, there's a very interesting connection between them. So that was cool.
I feel like I think Akito like started from the perspective of like everyone's telling her she's important and needed, and then like started to kind of doubt that and like desperately try to cling to it. Whereas Yuki started from the perspective of nobody wants me, nobody needs me, and is trying to kind of be like maybe I am needed, and sort of like go up from the other perspective.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. I think that's true. That's why he had his garden, so that he could be needed by something. That something would exist without him. Akito is sort of, I think I said this a lot when we were talking about Akito when we discussed the manga, but Akito is sort of this. We start off the series with Akito as a very much a villain who's in control of everything, but all of Akito's pain is also similar to what's going on with other people in the story. I mean, mostly, I think the big thing we see is like between Tohru and Akito trying to cling to what they feel like it's like it's not cling to the past, but cling to the like, I don't know, the situation that's comfortable for them.
Yeah. Akito's just kind of like demonstrating the worst possible reactions to all the like traumas.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It is interesting and important that you noted in the discussion that Akito is isolated. I think Akito is very isolated. Yeah, the maids are just like, peace, here's some books. And Ren is like, Akito and Ren don't have a good relationship, so I don't know if that's self-imposed, and probably like the maids are like, don't let Ren in here, it'll poison Akito and whatever. But
yeah, I feel like you were talking about how like all that's in the room is just like some old toys and stuff. I feel like the maids are kind of like, how do you take care of a child?
Good point. Yeah, good question. They're like, here's some books. We found these old bean bags that from the
we never had to do this.
Literally the like early 1900s.
Yeah.
I read this interesting those little bean bags because I was like, we talked about the bean bag before. I remember in the we just were like, I don't know, beanbag question mark, and they showed the toys much more prominently this time. And I said I was googling them, but I learned something interesting about those, which is that they're like little beanbags. It's called like te-dama, I think, like a hand. Tama is ball and te is hand, right? So, and like they were filled with beans. But apparently, according to the Wikipedia article that I read, during World War II, when food was low, they would take the like dried beans from them and give them to kids. So like a lot of those were basically lost and destroyed. So like there's a part of me that's like, even the family is so isolated and like well off that they have maybe these toys that are like super old too. Like I don't know. We don't know. It's just a very interesting sort of like
I think it does show the like,
little moment.
The like ancient isolated aspect of the Soma family.
I think that's how it's used in this episode. So regardless of like if that's the reason why or not, if it's some kind of like, I don't know, like a rarity. But Akito's like stuff doesn't look like other kids' stuff from the 90s and like even other kids in the story. Like it's very interesting to me. Although we don't really see a lot of their other stuff as kids, but like I don't know. I mean, we've seen all their other like rooms, and like we saw Hataru's room, like he had video games and crap. Didn't he have the? Oh no, like so. Akito's life is just very different from the rest of the Junichi, which also becomes a lot clearer later when Tohru realizes how isolated she was. So it's, I think we had talked about how this might be represented because there's so much like of Yuki's narration and stuff in the manga that just like takes up space for reading purposes. I think it's interesting how much of a broader perspective we get about Akito's life in these episodes without needing, you get a little bit more room to have more things shown. So.
Yeah, like you're able to just kind of see the like stuff just to kind of in the background while like Yuki's doing his narration and stuff, because like we see like a little bit of, like we see like the bean bags and stuff in the manga, but just like the scene of just like all the little toys like really kind of struck me. You're like, oh, Akito is a child, like
this whole thing is actually when they open the door the first time to greet Akito, you're like, oh, like, because we only ever see we only ever see Akito as what seems to be like an adult, like obviously a young adult, but I mean like everybody in series is a young adult. So, but yeah, you see this and you're like, whoa. Like I think it just puts things into a different perspective.
Yeah, like I think like you see Akito and you're like, oh, he's young, and then you see like the toys, you're like, oh, he's really young. He's a kid. He's
young enough to have little kid toys.
Yeah,
ancient child toys.
Yes.
Yeah, Akito should have had a freaking Power Ranger. Then everything would be different. Yeah. This is the 90s after all.
Get him a SNES.
Or the a SNES. I think it's like the 80s. I can't remember. I feel like people have talked about like the actual like timeline of how old they are. So it's like probably the 80s or the 90s.
Yeah,
but
I think the anime, it's probably the 90s.
The anime is probably the 90s, yes. But yeah, get him a SNES. Yeah. Everything could have been different. If only Akito had the fulfillment of Mario. Doing the same level over and over again would have prevented all the abuse from Yuki, maybe, of Yuki.
Like, Akito, you want to meet Yuki? Hang on, I gotta beat this level.
Like, okay. Yeah. Just throwing the SNES controller into the, like, CRT TV.
Yes.
When he doesn't get, like, when she doesn't get the score at the end.
Yes.
So many things to be different. Anyway. But yeah, I think it's just, it makes obviously illustrates or like makes you more aware of how childlike Akito is, how young Akito is, and I think shows how isolated she is, coupled with how she lives with Yuki, right?
Yeah.
And all those things really, I think still at this point, we haven't gotten any very sympathetic take on Akito. The most sympathetic thing is like Yuki being like, yeah, she was sad all the time. I don't know why, but we still don't really know why.
Yeah.
But it's okay. There's a couple episodes left in this season. I'm sure we'll find out very soon.
Yeah.
Do you think next time will be sort of Cinderella, or do you think it's going to be a whole episode of other stuff beforehand?
I don't know. It's definitely going to like start into it.
Yeah. But I don't know. There's the part before where they have to change all the parts.
Yeah. Because the I'm pretty sure the episode title is from the like non-argument that Kyo and Yuki have.
Yeah, afterward. Yes. Yeah. Does he like, punch the something? Kyo punches.
Yeah,
something.
When he like punches the window.
Yeah.
Because Yuki's just like not playing like he used to.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
So next time that'll be good.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll do sort of Cinderella next, but they'll definitely be like leading into it.
I think they have to have all the stuff in between because you have to have the rest of the conversation. Kakeru now will hit him in the face with the soccer ball. We predicted that last time, but that was incorrect. My apologies to all our listeners.
Also, I actually have that down as it's technically a spoiler since that doesn't happen until next time, but I never really thought about it before. But it's like Yuki's first friends played soccer with him.
Yeah.
And then when he's talking about it with Kakeru.
I remember realizing that. I don't know if we talked about it, but I remember realizing that when we reread the manga. I was like, oh, it's soccer. The power of soccer.
Yes.
The power of sport ball. We would know a lot about that.
Yes.
Soccer's not the sport that I was concussed in, so I can't provide any comments. I love to talk about this concussion. Anyway, it's fine. It was clearly traumatizing.
Yes.
But yeah, no, it's cute. It all comes full circle. Getting smacked in the face with soccer ball is an important part of growing up. Yes. Everybody knows that. Yes. And then, yeah, I mean, obviously, like, we have the continuing, like, Yuki and Kyo becoming more, like, frenemies. Or not even frenemies. Yeah. Just friends, awkward friends.
Yeah, and that really starts with that confrontation in the next episode, because it has,
That's true.
With like Kyo, like, you know, trying to do the old, you know, fight thing, and Yuki's just like, we're really doing this, and like,
he's like, no.
One other thing that's more of a side thing is when Akito's talking about like Kyo's mom committing suicide. He said that her note said like, it's hard to be near him. And it just like occurred to me now. I'm like, I wonder if that was about Kyo or about Kyo's dad.
Yeah, I don't know. And did she even leave a note? That all sounds like hearsay. And all of the stuff that they say about the mom, there's that later scene at the funeral where Kyo's like remembering some shit that people said, and then they said like there was some like last line that was added that was slightly different than like the first time that it was shown. I forget exactly what happened. Sorry, everyone's gonna take my word for it. But yeah, like all the reveal about his mother. I mean, like Kyo was there and saw her commit suicide. That is clear.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of other things. Oh, it was the thing that they said was that they'd argued. They're like, oh, I heard her and her husband arguing the night before, and that wasn't said in the like first view of that scene.
Mm-hmm.
At the funeral. I remember we had talked about that, and it's like, but like all of this is like all from other people's perspective. Like Akito probably heard that from people in the family gossiping. Like they could have just made that up. Because you think the Kyo would know that there was like a suicide note. Like his dad definitely would have said something and harassed him about it if there was. Yeah. And he never does. He's just like, yeah, your mom couldn't bear to be with you and whatever and blah 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 blah. But we know that she was scared. She would never have said like, oh, maybe if I'd been happier with the rat or whatever. Like it's not really about that. Yeah, I don't think.
I could also see it like having been like there was a note, but it implicated him more.
And that's possible
he, like,
too.
Pretended it didn't happen. Like
completely possible. I'm down for more speculation.
Yeah.
Get the like criminal justice. Get the Law and Order team on it. Yeah, I don't know. But my opinion is that it's all hearsay, and in this particular situation, Akito's just using it to make Yuki feel guilty. Yeah. Regardless
I'm sure Akito just heard something and was like, that'll work.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe he heard somebody talking about how, about Kyo's outburst at the funeral. Yeah, that'll work. Because Kyo is like, I'll kill Yuki and I'll kill myself. That is true. That was said at the funeral for sure. We saw that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Akito could have manufactured that. We don't know. I'm just saying. Or like it's just a combination of family hot goss.
Yep.
Which I, based on all these other scenes that we saw, I think is a likely scenario too. But could have been that she was like, yeah, I can't stand to be with my husband who's terrible anymore.
Yeah. And he's like, what's that? It's the cat's fault? Okay.
And then he just like crosses that out and writes, if only I had given birth to the rat.
This is a completely different handwriting.
Like, no, definitely hers. I can attest that it was hers. The Soma family probably like cleaned it all up and stuff too. Like they would never have like let anything be public about that. Well, Akito said, oh, like it was officially deemed an accident, but everybody knows it was a suicide. So like you know that they were like, here's some more complete speculation from me, which is like they probably didn't let any of that get out. They probably cleaned things up and kept it all on the DL because they're like a old stuffy traditional family and they don't want people to know anything, like how they have a child who's like not attending school, who's isolated inside the house, completely isolated. Does nobody question that? Listen. Anyway, my point is it's like I need to lie down. Too much speculation. There's like just we cut to a room with a bunch of like pictures of the Somas up and then red string tied to everything. And it's like, what does it all mean? Anyway,
sitting there with like 10 cups of coffee all around.
The killer's among us, and you're like, this isn't even a murder mystery. It's like when Uo and Hana are in Kyoto, and they're like, and then a murder will happen. Anyway, I don't have any more other actual things to say. I don't think
this is not relevant, but there's like an episode of Elementary where he was like stringing together like some kind of like speculation on something, and he had his like wall of stuff or whatever. And Watson's like, and where does Napoleon Bonaparte come in? Because he had like a picture of Napoleon up there, and he's like, by my 5th hour without sleep, I may have been reaching.
Apropos.
Yeah.
I don't have any other actual things to talk about. Yep. Okay, good. Next time, join us for our discussion of which episode? What? Join us. 22. Yes, I was gonna say join us for our discussion of Forrest Gump.
Oh yeah.
I hope everyone's done the reading. I mean, Although Forrest Gump is actually a book, I think. So
Yeah, it is.
the joke doesn't really land. How about Sleepless in Seattle? That's definitely not a book. Everybody watched Sleepless in... Maybe it was made into a book. I don't even know what I'm saying. It's fine.
Join us for Tomcast.
Yeah, join us for the Tomcast. Next time on the Tomcast, episode 22. That's not what I want. It's actually a TMZ video of Tom Hanks at a restaurant complaining. It is such a weird line. I was like, what is this from? Oh, yeah, it's probably from that time. Of course, another good weird line choice.
Yeah, I looked up, it's like in that argument, because it's not exactly the same as what the manga has it in, because...
Yeah, it's probably not exactly the same translation. Yes. It's him talking about the kind of relationship or whatever or something.
He says, like... I'm almost there. Yeah, he's saying, like, basically, like, your attitude is making Honda-san worry. Is that what you want? And in the manga, it has him snap, like, don't talk about her. But I'm assuming he snapped. That's not what I want in response to that.
Yeah. Well, Kyo's easy to catch off guard. Yuki's like, you're making Honda-san upset. Is that what you want? And he's like, I love her. And then and he's like, never mind. Oh, I love how Kyo is so, I don't know. Troubled. Such a... troubled. I was going to say he has such a, like, boyish earnestness sometimes, which is really funny.
Yeah.
when you catch him off guard. And again, another event that totally happened and isn't speculation at all. Okay, join us for episode 22 next time. Thank y'all for listening. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.